For decades, a monastery in the Himalayas kept a relic behind glass, a scrap of leathery skin, said to have come from the hand of a Yeti, killed generations ago on the high passes above the village. Pilgrims came to see it. It was proof, they were told, that the creature was real. In 2017, a biologist finally took a tiny piece of that relic and ran its DNA. The result did not just fail to find a monster, it found something the monster hunters had been walking straight past for more than 100 years. The Yeti, the Abominable Snowman, has haunted the mythology of Nepal and Tibet for centuries. Sightings passed down through generations. Enormous footprints photographed in the snow. Hair, bone, teeth, and skin carried down from the mountains and preserved in monasteries and private collections as physical evidence that something large and unknown lived up there in the ice. Plenty of people had looked at these relics over the years. Almost no one had done the single thing that could actually settle it. Then a team decided to gather as many alleged Yeti samples as they could find, from museum drawers to the private collection of the legendary mountaineer Reinhold Messner, and test every one of them against the genetic record of the bears of the world. What came back rewrote not the legend, but the animal hiding underneath it. To understand why the 2017 results landed the way they did, you have to know what the story looked like just before. A few years earlier, the Oxford geneticist Brian Sykes had run his own test on 2 hairs collected in the Himalayas. His finding was electric. A short stretch of their DNA appeared to match an ancient polar bear, an animal that had no business in the mountains of Central Asia. Sykes suggested something extraordinary, that there might be an unknown kind of bear up there, perhaps a hybrid of polar and brown bears, a real undiscovered animal that could sit behind the sightings. For a moment, the legend had a serious scientific candidate, not an ape, a mystery bear. That was the idea Charlotte Lindqvist, a bear geneticist at the University at Buffalo, set out to test properly. She gathered 9 purported Yeti specimens, a fragment of femur bone from a decayed Yeti found in a cave on the Tibetan plateau, that scrap of skin from the monastic relic, a clump of hair said to come from a Yeti a Jesuit priest had spotted in the 1950s. Teeth, scat, everything the believers had, and one by one she began to sequence them. The results came back with almost brutal consistency. The femur from the Tibetan cave, the supposed bone of a dead Yeti, was a Tibetan brown bear. The skin from the monastery relic, guarded for generations as the hand of the creature, was an Asian black bear. The Jesuit priest's Yeti hair, from a sighting told and retold for half a century, was a Tibetan brown bear. I remember expecting at least one sample to hold out, to come back as something we couldn't name. None of them did. Sample after sample, the monster dissolved into ordinary local wildlife. Of the 9 specimens, 8 were bears. The 9th, a single tooth, turned out to belong to a dog. But Lindqvist was not disappointed. She had never been hunting a Yeti. She was hunting bears, and these rare Himalayan and Tibetan animals were exactly the elusive creatures she had spent years trying to study. So while the samples closed the book on the ape, she kept reading. She sequenced the full mitochondrial DNA of 23 of these bears and compared them against bears worldwide. And the first thing that fuller data did was quietly kill the most exciting theory on the table. The polar bear signal that had so electrified Sykes simply evaporated. There was no hybrid. The hairs that had looked part polar bear were brown bears all along, misread from a smaller, shakier slice of DNA. The spooky candidate species was gone, and I'll be honest, this is the point where I expected the story to end, with a tidy nothing to see here, except the bears themselves refused to be ordinary, because when Lindqvist placed them on the brown bear family tree, one of them did not sit anywhere the textbook said it should. The Himalayan brown bear, it turned out, was not just another regional variety. Genetically, it was one of the very first branches to split from all other brown bears on the planet. Lindqvist's team estimated that split at around 658,000 years ago, during a massive glaciation that sealed the region off in ice. Every other brown bear lineage, from the grizzlies of North America to the browns of Europe, and even the Tibetan brown bears in the next valleys over, shared a far more recent common ancestor. Those Tibetan bears had branched off only around 340,000 years ago, but the Himalayan brown bear had been marooned in the high mountains for well over 500,000 years, a relic, a living survivor from an almost unimaginably deep past, isolated so long that it became something apart. And this is the moment the whole story turned over for me, because this real animal, when it rears up onto its hind legs, stands over 2 meters tall, shaggy and reddish brown, and leaves broad tracks in the melting snow that look unsettlingly like the print of a giant human foot. The monster hunters had been chasing a phantom ape and stepping over the real wonder the entire time. A genuinely ancient, genuinely strange bear that science had barely met, hiding in plain sight inside its own myth. Here's the part that should stay with you. The better the genetic tools became, the less the Yeti looked like a fake, and the more the bear looked like a marvel. And that bear is now disappearing. The Himalayan brown bear is critically endangered, scattered across a few shrinking pockets of mountain, and still one of the least understood large animals in all of Asia. Charlotte Lindqvist put it simply. The biological roots of the Yeti legend, she said, are local bears, and genetics should be able to unravel other mysteries just like it. Which is the part I can't quite shake. Every legend we chase, every monster we swear we glimpsed at the edge of the map, may be pointing at something real, something rarer and stranger than any invention, quietly going extinct while we go looking for a ghost. If you found this one fascinating, hit subscribe. There are stranger things still hiding in the data, and I will see you in the next one.